What's the most used man-made material on Earth? I'll give you the answer. Concrete. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. Have you ever stopped to think about the sidewalks, driveways, bridges, or the buildings around you? They're all made from concrete. So why don't we discuss it more? In each episode of Concrete Logic, we'll explore a unique concrete-related topic with the help of industry professionals shaping the trade's future. We'll talk with suppliers, contractors, architects, engineers, specialists, and even proponents of competing materials. We'll get their views on concrete and their visions for its future. So get ready to mix things up with Concrete Logic, where we turn the spotlight on the material that's everywhere but often overlooked. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. And now, here's your host, Seth Tandit.
Welcome to another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. And today I have Tyler Ley, YouTube, star. And he was on CBS Sunday morning, man. How cool is that?
Thanks, brother. Thanks, Seth. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Yeah. But anyhow, before we get going, I just want to remind everybody how you can support the podcast. There's three ways. One is to go to concretelogicpodcast.com. And if you got something out of today's episode, please share it with a coworker or colleague. But when you're on that homepage, you'll see we're well over 100 episodes now. So you can go in there, pick an episode, share it. And then the second thing you can do is, if you are on that same homepage, there's a couple ways to get a hold of me. There's a contact button in the upper right-hand corner. It says contact. Click on that. That's like shooting me an email. On the bottom right-hand corner of the same homepage, there is a little microphone. If you click on that microphone, it's like sending me a voicemail. And what I'm looking for are topic or guest suggestions. And that's why Tyler's is here today, because a listener was like, hey, could you get Tyler back on and talk about, we're going to talk about type 1L cement. So that's how it works. You tell me what you want to hear, who you want to hear from, and I will chase them down. I chase them down like nobody's business, right, Tyler?
You're awesome stuff. You're persistent and consistent. I love it, man.
Yeah. And then the third way you can support the show is if you get some kind of value out of this, any value at all, you can click on the donate button on the homepage, and you can give any amount, any dollar amount is appreciated. And that's how it works. That's how you can support the show. So with that, Tyler, let's get into the topic today. We are going to talk about type 1L cement. We're going to talk a little bit about the future of it. Like I said, someone wanted to hear your thoughts on type 1L cement.
Well, let's see. So type 1L cement is here to stay. It's something that's going to be in our industry for the foreseeable future, and it's going to keep changing and hopefully keep getting better. But it's going to keep changing, and people are going to be blending in things besides just limestone. They'll be blending in like fly ash and slag and other things like that, and they'll be selling it to you in an all-in-one product called a blended cement. It's pretty commonly used in Europe, but even in like Nebraska and in Iowa, in certain parts, they've used blended cements for a long time. And I'll be honest with you, in the state of Oklahoma, we've had limestone cement and for more than 10 years now, about 12 years where I'm at. And when we started, the only thing we used limestone cement for was for stabilized base. That's the only thing we used it for, because we got all the kinks worked out and the bugs worked out. Dauber Bingaman was with Wholesome Cement. He was one of the pioneers of making that work in this state. And so that is something that served us well in this state to kind of get over some of the bumps and some of the problems. But we use 1L a lot, and my entire lab is made out of 1L cement. I've got polished concrete floors. You can do amazing things with what type 1L cement, but I know what everyone's saying out there, because not all 1L cements are the same. Not all 1L cements are created equal. And there's always a hiccup or some challenges as people start to go through and adopt and do anything new. Have you seen that, Seth? Have you had any challenges?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends. I talk to as many people as I can, and again, it depends on where they are in the country. I also think it has a lot to do with how we cure our concrete as well. So folks that are lazy with curing probably have more problems than ones that are good at curing concrete. But yeah, I really was paying attention, obviously, in the last couple of years that we're seeing in the specifications. Someone told me it's like it's always been in the spec. Blended cement's always been in the specifications, and then I finally start paying attention that they have ASTMC 595 listed versus the normal ASTMC 150 that you see for type 1-2. So I started paying attention to that now. Every time I'm starting to look at a new job or a potential job, is make sure that they're listed in there.
Yeah. So I think C595 specs or C595 cements. I mean, when I talk to the cement companies, that's what a lot of them are talking about. Now, I don't know what time that's on, but the idea is that they're going to provide a more of a packaged product that would be greener, be hopefully perform better as well. And so like an all-in-one thing. So I think that's where they're headed. And again, I don't know what the timeline is, but I think that's where they're headed. But I'll tell you, Seth, what I think our industry needs to do is I think our industry needs to learn from what our experience with type 1L cements. And I think we need to realize that it's probably not likely that things are going to be a 1-for-1 switch. Have you seen that before, Seth? That you kind of got to really check and make sure that if I'm using a new cement or I'm using a new admixture that I kind of need to see how that impacts everything. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just learned it because of our mistakes. But I think the when at least in our area, the type 1L, when they made the switch, that we were told it was a 1-for-1, and then it was used as a 1-for-1, and then we found out that it wasn't a 1-for-1.
Yep.
But yeah, that's we talked about that a bunch of times on the podcast. That
yeah.
Yeah.
And just to summarize, they might have when they go to make these 1L cements, there's a lot of different properties that they can try to match.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you try to match workability? Do you try to match strength? Do you try to match bleed rate? Do you try to match setting time? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you try to match something else that we didn't name? All right. I mean, there's all kinds of things that do you try to match, and there's too many things to get perfect. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's likely that people often try to they either need to pick workability, set time, or strength, right? And you got to pick one of them. And if you get one of them right, then you're probably going to be off on the other two. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I never thought of it that way, because as concrete contractors, we focus on mostly set time and workability also. Yep. But so you're saying you're not going to get all three?
Well, I never say never, right? I never ever want to say we've got some wizards in our industry and they can do some amazing things. But imagine if you're ever trying to match one of something, like life is all about teeter-totters, right? It's all about if I push real hard for one thing, I might not get something else. So if I'm going to grind my cement in such a way to try to make my workability be about the same, then I might not get the same set time, and I'm probably not going to get the same strength gain, because let's be honest, we're putting gristle in the meat, right? That's what limestone is, right? It's gristle in the meat, and some gristle makes your meat taste a little bit better if you made hamburgers before, right? But too much of it makes it not so good, right? And so finding that balance is what I think everybody's trying to do, and I think we're going to learn a lot in the future. Like, we've known, for example, that like aggregate gradation, like the rock and the sand gradation, is really important for the workability of our concrete. You know what I'm talking about, Seth? Right?
Yeah.
I think there's something similar on the powder. I think there's a particle size distributions on the powder side that makes it flow better, makes it work better, makes it set more reliably. All right. But we don't know those yet. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. Like,
So
we're
you're saying,
literally dealing with unknowns here.
yeah. So maybe less grinding when you're making
Well, I
cement?
think it's all about particle size distribution, and I think that's where it gets complicated. It depends on the limestone you're using, right?
Okay.
So limestone is like dog. Like, how many dogs are there out there, Seth? Like, how many different types?
Right.
There's like hundreds of different types of dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Limestone is the same thing. Limestone is a general geologic term where there's all kinds of different morphologies, different chemistries, different whatevers that fall into limestone, just like there's all kinds of different four-legged animals out there that we call dogs, right? And so the thing is going to be is that every single cement plant is going to be a little bit different depending on what limestone source they're using, on how hard their clinker is, like what their grinding medium is, how long they grind, what other additives they're using, grinding aids or what they're called. I mean, did you know that we have admixtures for cement? Did you know that, Seth? They're called grinding aids.
Yeah. We've had a podcast about that. Yeah.
What? That's awesome. Well, grinding aids are really cool, but they're one of the unspoken things of our industry. Okay, because people change their grinding aids all the time, and I'm not saying that there's something evil. I think they're another amazing tool to help us get great stuff. My point with all this, Seth, is that this is not easy. This is not easy. Okay, it's not as easy just to go find some limestone and grind it up with my clinker and it's going to be great at the end. There's some engineering and some science that goes into actually dialing that in. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think, just my opinion, this is just Tyler Ley speaking here, I don't think as an industry we have it all figured out yet.
No way.
Yeah. So I think there's a bunch of opportunity in the future. And I think when people start to go to blended cements, like adding fly ash and slag and things like that, that's something that we're going to need to step up to and understand at an even higher level, all this powder stuff in a lot more detail. I mean, yeah, but is it okay if I talk about some possible solutions, Seth? Because I don't want to leave everyone thinking that we're like it's destitute and we're never going to figure this out. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, before you get in that, can I ask you a quick question? I asked somebody else's question. So that you were talking about each individual cement supplier will be unique in what they bring to the producer, correct?
Yes,
hearing you. All right. And then there's variability even in what they have or what they manufacture, correct?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Yeah. So how do you determine what is a good way to determine what they bring to you is the same as the last load they sent to you?
Bro.
Or are you going to have to check that each time they bring you a load of cement?
Good question. So everyone's going to get stuff dialed in. Okay. Like I think we need to agree that in the future, people are going to iterate and they're going to get this figured out. But let's talk about tools that you could use to help protect yourself. You down with me for that, right?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
So the simplest tool, the best tool, like literally this is a game changer tool for you out there. If you're dealing with 1L cement problems, or if you're worried about workability in general, this is an amazing tool. It's called the float test. And I've got several videos where I've like kind of talked about it. I'm going to make one coming up where it's only about the float test. Brother, it's simple. It's plywood, right? And it's 2x4s, right? It's a 3 foot by 3 foot, 3 foot by 2 foot box that is 3 inches deep that you fill with concrete. Fill with concrete. You don't consolidate the concrete. You just dump it in, you strike it off. You with me so far, Seth?
Yeah.
Then you use a float. You trim the float so it only rides on the concrete. It doesn't ride on the forms. That's really important. Now we have a yoke in the back. That's a little angle thing to hold it at a fixed angle, and we move it forward at a fixed speed, and we move it back at a fixed speed, right? And we measure and then what we do is we measure two different things. Something I left out, Seth. We actually make 3 holes in the surface. Now, why do we do that? Well, we want to simulate aggregate pluckouts in the surface because it's the finisher's job to finish in and close up any of those holes on the surface. So we create 3 1-inch diameter, 1-inch deep holes, and then we do the float back and forth, and we have 2 measurements that come out. One is how many passes, forward is 1, back is 2, to close up the holes. And number 2, how many passes does it take to create a smooth surface? And we use visual ranking. We just kind of have some pictures and we look at it and we say, hey, is it looking good? Is it looking good? And a mix that requires more passes, it's not so good, brother. It's not so good. Because if it requires a lot of passes, they get the holy water out. You know what I'm talking about, right? The holy water, right? And they bless the surface, and we don't want that. That causes spalling. That causes finishing issues. That causes higher water to cement ratio at the surface. We don't want that. Now, so we want to design our mixes to have the lowest amount of passes possible. You with me?
Yeah.
And there are cement companies right now that are using this approach to kind of evaluate their cements. Okay. And you should start doing it as a user, right? Like ever so often, doesn't mean you have to do it every day, but ever so often, especially when you think there's a change, get the float test out, run the float on top of it, see how many passes it takes. You can do it in the field, you can do it in the lab, you can do it at the site, you can do it wherever you want. It's just a way to get some data, some information. Okay? Because if we don't start measuring, we're never going to get changed. When I talk to people in the cement industry, and I'm not throwing shade on them when I say this, but a lot of them, they say, I hear different things from different people. Okay? Some people are having problems and some people aren't. That's what they tell me sometimes. And if we give them data to say, listen, I ran the float test, same mix, same everything. I ran the float test and it's changing. That's data. That's much, 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 much better data than if we just say it's harder to finish today. You know what I'm saying? Because you and I both know there's a million things that could be a reason why it's harder to finish today.
Yep, that's true.
Any questions on the float stuff or finishing? What are your thoughts? You think is it? Am I full of it? What do you think?
No, I mean, I think that's a unique way. I was thinking more of how do you drill down to the cement based on the float test, because I saw I saw, like I mentioned before we hit record, your fiber YouTube was telling use the same test to test your fibers as well. So
yes, sir.
I was hoping you'd give me something where I could take a sample out of the cement that was delivered, the powder itself, and test that powder itself, so I could drill in and see if that powder is what they say it is.
Well, something that I'm working on right now is tools to do that, right?
Okay.
Something that I'm looking for industry support right now, in all honesty, because this is not something that a lot of my traditional funding agencies like DOTs or like the federal government are that interested in actually funding. Okay. But I think, and so I'm talking to people right now. So there's tools that you can use that are expensive, but I'm trying to develop some simple tools that people could use to evaluate if what they're telling you is the right thing or not, and just to kind of get some verification. But I'll tell you that there is, I think the float test is valuable because it tests my whole everything together. Right.
Yeah.
But I do think I agree with you on the powder itself. But now let's talk about set. Is that okay with you? Talk about set for a second?
Yeah.
So when it comes to set time, there are some definite tools that you can use with the powder. Okay. There's things called calorimeters, right? And calorimeters measure the amount of heat that's given off. Okay. And there's 2 flavors. There's the expensive kind, and then there's the not so expensive kind. There's something called the isothermal calorimeter. What? That's the expensive kind. And then there's the adiabatic calorimeter. All that matters is one's expensive and one's not. One, you run it just with cement paste, okay? And then the other one, you can run it with a concrete mix, right? So I have both of them in my lab. They are awesome. And they are really powerful tools because they give you this heat curve. Now, what's going to happen is if your set time is changing, the heat curve is going to change. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's powerful is to use whatever admixtures you're thinking about, whatever SCMs you're thinking about in your mix,
Mm-hmm.
get a heat curve, and then just compare that heat curve over time. So what I'm telling you now might sound, some people in your audience might sound like it's too hard or it's too crazy or it's too nuts, but I think this is going to be more commonplace, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
I think making these measurements ourselves with our materials are going to make more sense. And it's kind of like a cook, right? When a cook, they may buy sugar or something, but they're still going to mix up a batter and they're still going to taste it. They all taste it. They all see if it meets their own standards and quality. And if it doesn't, they tweak it until it does. We're going to be more like the cooks coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We've had many, many years where everything was the same. It was the same. I could use the same mix again and again and again and again and again. But I'll tell you, consistency is going to become a much, much bigger deal to all of us. All of us. Consistent concrete, consistent performance out there, consistent product out there. And the only way we're going to get there, I believe, is taking more measurements. Now, I don't mean crazy measurements. I don't mean hard measurements. I don't mean I've got to buy a whole lab and whatever. I'm not saying that. We're going to come up with simple, easy ways to test these things, just like the cook tasting the batter. Okay. And you probably have them now. You look at them, you see them, you run a trowel over them, you finish them, right? And I get that. Those are all powerful, but they're going to be easier to use. They're going to be easier to implement, and they're going to become common language, like slump. Slump's amazing because it's simple and it's easy. People love to bag on it, but it's simple and it's easy and it's inexpensive. And we're going to develop more tools like that for all of us to use in what we do. So we have a common language. We already have slump. Slump's 3, slump's 5. Everyone knows what that means. Just like when you order a steak, medium rare, everyone knows what that means. Same thing is going to happen. It's just we're going to need different tools. It's not going to be the same as just slump. Okay? There's going to be more to the story, more things that we have to measure. Makes sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's the future, my friend.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're going to have to do to take control over all the things that are thrown at us going into the future. And for those that are willing to step up and do it, you're going to see better concrete than you've ever seen before. You're going to see more rewards than you've ever seen before. All right. But for those that don't, if you've had problems with 1L cement, get ready. Get ready. The future is going to be even more challenging.
And what
Don't
does
you
that
agree?
Yeah, what does that look like?
Well, what does it look like? Well, it can look like if you're not really watching things and how things change, it could be really insane inconsistency from mix to mix to mix to mix to mix. Okay, from load to load to load to load to load. Because if there's a lot of different variables or a lot of different things out there that can be impacting why that concrete's doing what it's doing. And if you don't have a handle on some of them, you're never going to know what's going on. It's going to be like a random number generator. It's going to be like rolling the dice every day. What are we getting today? And if you're already living there, don't you want to get out of that? I would want to get out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a contractor, we did everything we could to make our mud as consistent as possible. Everything we could. One thing that's simple, man. Simple, simple, simple. And I used to teach about it at the World of Concrete, but I cover other stuff now. It's called the bag test. You ever heard of the bag test, Seth? You're going to love the bag test, brother.
Yeah.
All you need are some Walmart bags, right? Or if you don't have Walmart, buy you whatever plastic bag you want. And you're going to need some big old, like those big old insulated cups. You know what I mean? The bigger, you can buy everything at a Quick Trip. All right. And so when your concrete shows up for the day, what we used to do is we would take 2 bags of it. Right. I would take one bag and throw it in the back of my truck on a plywood board. Okay. And then I had the other bag that I would put in my cab that I'd put in one of those insulated cups and I put the lid on it. You with me so far, Seth?
Yeah.
And what I would do is that way I could be anywhere on the job and my foreman could call me on the radio and talk about the mud. Because the one in the back is in the same environment. It's driving around in my truck, but it's in the same environment as everything else on the job. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
And I can get out of my truck and I can poke it and I can look at the bleed. I can look at what's going on. I can look at the cream. I can look at all kinds of different stuff that's going on with that concrete. And the thing that's inside my truck, that's inside that cup with the lid on it, right? That's one that's insulated from the environment. So I can do the same thing. I can poke it. So I can say, like, is the temperature impacting from the stuff in the cup versus stuff in the back? Okay, like what's going on day to day? What's happening? And when you start to do that again and again and again, and all I'm doing, my friend, is taking simple measurements, simple observations that then I have a common language with other people on my job on how we talk about it. And I bet if you think about it, you do that right now. I bet you do it all right now. I'm just saying we're going to need more of that, a lot more of that going ahead. Simple stuff that ties into what's going to matter. And as we get into this blended cements or higher volumes of limestone, we're only at about 12%. Most of the places in the United States are only about 12% limestone replacement. When we go up to 15%, or people are talking about going up to 20% limestone replacement, all of this is going to become even more important for us to just keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on. It's just like that cook taking a taste of the batter. They have to check in and see, is it too salty? Is it too sweet? What's the consistency? We got to keep dialing that in.
Mm-hmm. So you want to talk a little bit about what other blends you see coming?
Yeah. So blended cements have been around a long time. Like I said, Iowa's been using them for more than 10 years. So they already have fly ash that's blended in with cement. They have got slag that's blended in as well. And sometimes they're both blended in. Okay. So blended cements are always interesting because you don't, and this may change, but you don't always know exactly what's in them. All right. But right now you don't always know what's exactly in them. They're supposed to guarantee you a certain performance. Okay. But the problem is, my friend, is that all of us have a different performance that we have in our heart that we want. Okay. And so they're designed into one performance, and it may not be the exact performance you're wanting as a customer. And again, that's why you're going to have to keep a pulse on it, keep an eye on it. But what this is going to allow us to do is that we'll be able to use fly ashes that don't necessarily meet specifications that are out there today. And some people might say that those fly ashes are bad. No. They're not bad. They're not bad. Because a cement company doesn't want to sell you something bad. They don't want to, because they're not going to be in business very long if they do that. Other people are going to find a way to do something better, right? And so they're going to be including things that are going to lower the carbon footprint of concrete while trying to provide some certain level of performance. Now we need to speak up. We need to speak up, because if we don't tell them what performance we want, if we don't establish what level of whatever performance matters to us, then we're not going to get our needs met. Are you following me, Seth?
Somewhat. How are we going to do that?
Ask me a question. Help me out here, my man.
How are we going to do that? What do you mean?
Well, we can't be quiet.
Yeah.
We can't be quiet. We've got to step up, and we've got to start establishing test methods that we think are useful. So if we think the float test is useful, why not? And I'm making stuff up here, literally making stuff up on the fly. But why don't we make them or require that they run a float test before they send you out a load of cement? They put it on the mill sheet. Okay. I'm scaring some cement people right now, right? But my man, like, don't they need to provide us some level of performance? Don't they need to provide us some level, or don't they need to at least alert you when that performance is going to change? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. You're talking about cement provider. guaranteeing what he's providing the ready mix producer, which I think that's where the disconnect is right now. Is the cement guy, at least my understanding, is delivering something that uh, they have a mill certificate for that says this is what it is, and it's up to the ready mix producer to provide what us as contractors or owners of facilities require of the concrete.
Yeah, that's right. But does it have to be that way?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be that way. But
why don't we add something to the mill sheet that just tells them how it's going to affect the workability?
Yeah.
Why don't we put something on the mill sheet that tells us something about set time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And require the cement guy to do the same test that the ready mix producer will have to do as well, right?
But I mean, I don't know who's going to have to do what, right? We're just pontificating here, right? But my point is that if I'm a person selling a product, then I want to make sure that I provide my client with the product, with the information that they need to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you don't tell me what you need, then how can I ever know what to provide you?
True.
You're with me.
Yeah.
So, and they don't want to produce products that people aren't happy with. No one on this planet wants to make a product that the other people aren't happy with. I don't think.
Right.
If they are, they're not. They're in the wrong industry. We don't want them in our industry if that's the way they are.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily know what to shoot for.
Okay.
So if we don't tell them, how can they ever know what to give us?
Yeah.
So listen, I'm saying some insane, crazy stuff right now because it's a future that we don't know what it's going to be. But I can all tell you right now that if we don't start measuring more stuff that matters, we're going to be in trouble. And when we made our mill sheet specifications for cement, that was a long time ago, my friend. And we weren't doing near as complicated concrete, and we weren't doing near as complicated stuff to our cements.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone in life benefits from having more information. Don't you agree? As long as it's good information?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I know exactly what that information is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if we don't start talking about it, if we don't start sharing our ideas, if we don't start looking for new ways to improve this and make this better, my friend, it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse in a hurry. And who it's going to get worse for are the people that aren't just middle of the road, right? They're going to get slammed, right? And so if you don't start taking care of yourself personally, that's step number one. And then you got to start asking for what you want. And sometimes you don't know what you want until you start measuring it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You with me?
Yeah.
So that's my vision for the future, my friend, is that is going to become commonplace. All right. And that doesn't mean you can't still make concrete without doing these things. But if you want to make consistent, you want to make high quality, you want to deliver again and again and again to your client, this is the type of stuff that I think we're going to need to step up with, because that's what our industry is going towards, right? Differences.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That's a call for everyone to get their act together.
That just scare the crap out of you? What do you think?
No, it makes a whole lot of sense. I think, typically on a job, you do the initial mock-up and you go out there and say, look, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And you never back check again until there's a problem. Right. So I think your idea of doing essentially the float test is a mini mock-up in my head.
Yes.
So, and then your bag test is you're doing the same thing as the third party guy's doing. So yeah,
I'm just doing it myself. I just have a little bit of more data myself. You know what I mean? And they ask me all the time, how many bags you got in the back of your truck? I don't care, brother. Did I have a good day? Did I head off a problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's value there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. We got to stop relying on others and take control of it ourselves, so. All right. Well, I think that's a good spot to end today. Tyler, if folks want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to work with you and support your new endeavor that apparently the DOT and the federal government don't want to help you with?
Oh, well, if you want to, first of all, if you want to help out with the Portland limestone cement thing that I'm doing, or the other blended cement stuff that I'm doing, you probably should go to my website, concretefreaks.com. All right. Yeah. And then there you can join the mailing list. You can reach out. There's ways to reach out. Let me know that you're interested in that. That would be huge. All right. And if you've got some stuff that you've had problems with, that you have samples of, that would be huge. If you want to support it financially, that would be huge. But you can also check me out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Tyler Ley. Okay, my name. And if you just type in Tyler Concrete YouTube, then I come up. And I've got more than 300 videos on there. I get about 5,000 to 6,000 views a day from people all around the world. I get tons of really cool emails and contacts and comments in there about concrete stuff. And baby, I do it because I love concrete. Like I freaking love concrete to my core. All right. And if I can give you a 5-minute video that's going to help explain something, that's going to help you see something different, help you get a new tool, then that's what I'm going to do. So I try to squeeze all the goodness I can in like a 6 to 7 minute video. And I try to make it fun, try to make it entertaining, try to get it out there. And so, yeah, check me out. Those are probably the 2 best ways to get a hold of me.
Yeah, I can't recommend Tyler's videos anymore. It's like they're the greatest. I was just telling him before we hit record, he just has a great way of simplifying the unique challenges that we have in concrete. So appreciate Tyler. And Tyler, thank you for coming on the show once again. And we'll get you back on, and we'll talk about the next blended concrete or cement next time. So
let's do it, baby. Be fun.
All right, folks. Until next time, let's keep it concrete.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. If you got value from the show, here's how you can provide value back to support the show. Visit concretelogicpodcast.com and click the donate button to send value back. All dollar amounts are truly appreciated. And now, to close out the show, here's Mike Dunton.
Ring, ring, that alarm always sings. Couple hours before the sun comes up. Open up the side, put some diesel in the lights, and wait till the trucks roll up. Yeah, this ain't how most folks live their lives. Dripping in sweat, working overtime. But while they're tying their ties for their 9 to 5s, we're out here changing these skylines with wood, iron, and mud. We work hard for $1, give thanks to the Lord above. Never make a man do something you can't prove. Hard work calls for a drink or two. Expect more, it's written in our blood. With wood, iron, and mud. From the swamps to the city, from the Lone Star heat to the woods of the Georgia pine. Good old boys and girls who ain't afraid of getting dirty for a clean time. And if you want to see the fire in a grown man's eyes beneath the hot summer sun, find the wild-eyed boys clocking days and nights, working hard